Close your eyes. No, really, close your eyes. And don't open them until I tell you to. Do you have them closed yet? Good. Now, what I want you to do is picture this amazing land where his kid grew up. A father is anxious in the waiting room, waiting for any news of his firstborn child. A mother is ready to give birth. Now, all of this is happening, and as we move forward in time, this little baby keeps on growing. He ends up living in a culture full of history, a big plaza, filled with kids laughing, having fun. Now, we keep on moving, and this few-month-old baby is now a kid. He sits in a little white room with a little Spider-Man action figure on his hand. But unbeknownst to him, in another little white room, his parents are talking about moving to a place they say is filled with hopes and dreams, where anyone can achieve anything they want. Times were tough, and so a decision was made. And so our story picks up the pace. This kid, he came here in the first grade, not knowing the language, not knowing what to do, not knowing what to expect. And as he continued to grow, as he continued to learn, he made friends. He started to speak the language, and quickly he was attending Pleasanton Middle School. Now, at this age, he started to find the passion for technology. He got his first laptop, a silver MacBook Pro 13-inch with 64 gigabytes of RAM. He discovered the amazing world of technology and what it brought to us. And with this, he discovered storytelling and filmmaking. You may open your eyes now. Was I right? Couldn't you see without seeing? It's pretty crazy what our brains can do with a little bit of imagination and more. Now, without you knowing, I made a little picture inside your head. With every little pixel, with every little word I said was like a pixel that, got into your brain, and then that formed into a video, and that, eventually became a little film inside your brain. But what exactly about storytelling, drives us? What exactly pushes us to that next level? Well, there's a lot of things. But first, let me get started with saying that I didn't introduce myself the normal way. Rather than introducing myself, just, hey, my name's Yvonne, and I do this and that, I wanted you to experience what I experienced, to be part of my story, to see what I saw, to feel what I felt, to even sometimes smell what I smelled. That is how we as humans connect. And because of this is why filmmaking became my passion. Because we share our ideas, we share a message, and much more than that. And storytelling is really all about that. But what is storytelling? What drives storytelling? When I was coming up with ideas about this TED Talk, I'll be quite honest with you, I had no clue what I was getting myself into. And the more I kept, doing it, and the more I kept thinking, storytelling and filmmaking really were my two options. And so the more I pursued storytelling, the more and more I realized that filmmaking is just an editing or just small steps of a bigger process. And that process is storytelling. Now, we all here have probably heard stories, right? Some were told to scare us, some were told to inspire us, and some were even told to, teach us. Regardless is that we have heard stories, and those stories, believe it or not, shape who we become. Now, with those stories, take them as events that, happen in our lives. And those events are like little chapters in a bigger book, our book of stories, our life. When we think of things like this, we start to see everyday life, more and more interesting. When I was 10 years old, I got a Nintendo 3DS for my birthday, and I was super excited, to go and play video games out on the go. Amazing. But the funny thing is that I don't remember it for, playing games, rather making my first videos. And I made a million of these. I remember making my first stop motion, which the 3DS had built into it, a software that allowed it to do that. And just so we're on the same page, stop motion is just simply, the manipulation of objects to, create a sense of motion. Sort of like this, right? Now, we all seen these Legos ones. In fact, the Lego movie is pretty big right now. So it's really simple, and I made a ton of these. Now, more than that, I was amazed that as I continued to make these videos, my stories became more and more complex. And the more and more complex they became, the more interested I felt in continuing to do so. From simple a Lego man walking across the dish and fighting dish monsters to Michael Bay explosions, right? Anything was my playground. And so I kept doing it, and I showed my friends, and they would watch it over and over and over again, and they wanted to do some with me. And so that still kept up the question: why would they be so drawn to it? What makes storytelling so captivating? And well, it's actually pretty easy. It's scientific. So here's what happens. So we get our signals to our brains when we start hearing things, right? And it goes through our cerebrum, and then that cerebrum becomes ventricles, and those ventricles, they go into our neurons, and blah, blah, blah. See, this thing is boring, and I did this to demonstrate a point that when we do things like this, we tend to lose the audience's attention, if I haven't lost it by now. But the point is that these are just bullet points and just information given to you with no specific structure. When there's no structure to things, our brains just tend to tune out. And why is that? Why do we tend to tune out? Well, when information is just presented like this with nothing else, our brains are just decoding words. That's all that's happening. But when we tell stories, much more than that happens. Our brains start activating our sensory fields, our touch, our smell. It's like if we were taking part of the main character, that the story or whatever story that we are being told. We take that part and we enjoy it, making stories much more memorable. Now, with that being said, who here is scared of the dark? Anyone? Right? Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. A little bit embarrassing, but it's all right. I remember being deathly scared of the dark when I was younger. And I kept thinking about it, and I was like, well, why is this? And the reason why I remember now is because when I was younger, I had an older cousin who told me the story of El Cucuy, or the boogeyman, right? And he would tell me that he would come out at night and, eat little children. I would never go out in the dark, never. And the older I got, I'm not going to say until what age I stopped being scared of the dark, because it's a little bit embarrassing. But the point is that, stories like that, even simple ones, have a strong message, and they can persuade how we think. So, as I continued to develop my understanding for these stories, I continued to make more things out of it. And building onto that, I continued to take classes. And those classes didn't really help me much as I started learning from a young age, but they didn't inspire me to, focus on my storytelling and how I could become better at it. Now, it's pretty cool because stories are really quite simple to make. And, we have a simple story arc, right? And I don't know if you've been taught this, and if you haven't, you probably will eventually. But this is what we're regularly taught, right? We have an exposition, a rise in action, a climax, a fall in action, and a resolution. I like to make things a little bit more simple, just calling it the beginning, the middle, and the end, right? And we probably now all know this. And the way I like to do this, and why I like to do this, is really only one reason. Because our lives are really just stories. And, sometimes we're going so fast in our day-to-day lives that we don't really see each part of the stage. But if we simplify it to just the beginning, the middle, and the end, we can see much more of that. And that can help us, communicate better, keep conversations going, and see other points of views that, we might have not seen before. Okay, so with that being said, I want you to keep thinking about this. When you go out there, try to picture yourself in these little situations. Everything is a cause and an effect. If I do my homework, I'll do better in school. If I don't do my homework, I'll still do better in school. I'm kidding. No? Okay. But the point is, there are things that, that go with storytelling. Last but not least, in my case, I want to make it clear, videos are sort of my thing, and I love building stories around those videos. And while I do enjoy it a lot, videos is not the only way, to expose your stories. You can write, you can make music, you can make poems, you can do several other stuff to show and tell your stories. And that is really all I really want you to get out of this, that through storytelling, you can do much more than what, you see, or you might be able to see different angles of life that you haven't seen before. So if you get anything from this, talk, is that I want you guys to, share your stories. Because in a world where we're divided by so many things. Stories can bring us together at its core, help us unite. So go out there and share your stories. Thank you.